going to show you guys how to make this fork in the eye prosthetic. So this is actually my first prosthetic I've ever made. It's not perfect, but I'm pretty happy with it. So I'm going to show you guys how to do it. Now, if you've seen my fork in the eye tutorial, there's actually two different prosthetics that I used in that tutorial. In this video today, I'm just going to be showing you how to make the fork in the eye that is still attached to your head. For the eye that's actually hanging out, I followed a fellow YouTuber's tutorial, so thank you so much to ElliMacs SFX here on YouTube. They show you how to create the eye and the iris and how to do the veins and basically the cord hanging down. I basically employed most of their techniques in both of my eye prosthetics, but with the fork in the eye one, I did tweak it a little bit, obviously by adding the fork, by adding the pad at the bottom and doing the makeup prior. Okay, so I'm starting off with some Polymorph Plastic, which is basically just plastic beads. I bought these off eBay from an Australian seller. I will link them in the description box below if you guys wanted to get your hands on them. But basically they're just little plastic pellets that you can melt in, I think it's 62-degree water. I wasn't too pedantic on the temperature of the water. I just boiled some water, let it cool down, poured the beads into the water, and basically when the beads go clear or transparent, then they're ready. So once they were completely melted or clear, I took them out, just squeezed some of the excess water out of them, and then started to mold it around a existing eyeball that I already had, just to get a kind of concave shape. Trying to work as quickly as possible, I put the fork in. I ended up having to cut the ends of the fork a little bit so it was the same as my other eyeball that I had already made. So I put the fork in and just kind of punched out holes that I could super glue the fork into later on. Also guys, if you're wondering, the fork that I'm using is a plastic fork that is already silver. It's lightweight, it's easier to use than a real fork. I then removed the plastic circle I made away from the eyeball, and while it was still kind of warm and still able to be pliable, I started cutting around any excess and trying to make it a bit smaller. I ended up having to cut a fair bit off to make it a lot smaller because I made it way too big, and even after I finished it was still too big. So yeah, I just had to cut quite a bit off, which is good with this type of plastic because you can always reheat it and then cut more off if you need to. So I'm just going in with some glue and gluing that fork into place. With my other eyeball that I made, I didn't use any super glue because it was a solid ball of the Polymorph Plastic. I basically just shoved the fork in the middle and it stayed there perfectly, and the plastic kind of dried around it. Now I just have some irises which I printed off. I got one that was kind of the closest match to my eye. Again, it was probably a little bit too big, but oh well. I glued that down, making sure that it was in pretty much the same spot. It's got a little light reflecting bit on the eye, so making sure it was in the same spot as my other eye that I already made, and I glued it down with a little bit of super glue. Then I went in with some clear nail polish. This is just some Essence nail polish, doesn't have to be anything fancy, the cheaper the better, and I basically did 6 or 7 coats of this over the whole eye to give it a really kind of glossy finish. Now I'm going in with the blood vessels. So obviously where the fork is, it's going to be very red, really irritated and sore. I'm using just some red fibers of some yarn, red yarn obviously, and just really lightly kind of laying that over those areas and then coating some more nail polish over the top. I also did a few just random veins underneath the fork and just scattered also around the eye as well. I then went in with a little bit of cream makeup and also a little bit of alcohol activated makeup, and went in with some black and a tiny bit of red, and just went in between those fork spokes just to make that appear darker and make it look a lot more realistic. Now I've got some liquid latex which I had previously poured out into a bowl. I'm just peeling this away. It's dried 100% and it just gives you a good kind of realistic skin to work with. So basically I'm cutting off little strips of this, just like a semicircle kind of shape. I'm laying that against my eye and just kind of measuring it, seeing how it's looking, and then I'm measuring the bit that I need to fold over for the eyelid. So basically I'm just folding this little bit over, and because the latex is quite tacky, I haven't powdered it. You don't need to glue this in place, it's just going to hold in place on its own. So I've just folded that bit over. Then the bit that you've folded towards the inside is going to be the inside of the eye, so basically flip it over and then you've got this realistic eyelid look. So basically I'm just going to lay this down. I did try gluing it down with a little bit of liquid latex, but it didn't work, so then I swapped to the super glue and basically held it in place as it was drying. I also wanted the eyelid to flop over the top of the fork, so I made it just that little bit bigger so the fork looked like it was inside the eyelid. Now do exactly the same to the lower eyelid. Be sure to put it close enough to your actual iris, so make sure there's not that much white visible. Also leave a little bit overlapping near the corners of the eye because we can fold that in and create a tear duct. As well, make sure the sides of the eye are glued down properly, and you might want to wear gloves. I didn't wear gloves, and you see all that white stuff on my nails? That's super glue, so I kind of got glue everywhere. I give this a good half an hour or so to dry before you go in and paint it. So basically I'm just taking some foundation kind of colors and just painting all of the latex. It's not going to match 100%, but I went in, just painted it one solid color, and then I went in with some lighter and darker colors and kind of really lightly stippled the little colors on to make almost like little freckles and little different pigmentations of the skin to try and make it as realistic as I could. I then went in with a kind of pinkish foundation and lined all of the rim of the waterline to make it look really realistic, and also all inside the tear duct as well. Then went in with a little bit of black and a little bit of red alcohol activated paints and just lined the inside of the eye, so where that latex was a little bit raised, I lined inside that to make it look a lot more realistic, like you could see the darkness kind of behind your eye. So I did that all around the inside of the eye and also near the fork as well, and just touched up any areas that I needed. Now it's time for eye makeup. So I'm going in with some black alcohol activated paint and doing my liner. I also do recommend doing the eyeshadow at this stage because it's so hard to do later, which I found out. So if you know what eyeshadow you're going to be doing on your other eye, mimic the same. Now I'm going in with some false lashes. I actually used 2 pairs. 2 for the top, 2 for the bottom, which means that my eye was way too big. But basically I'm just gluing these down with some liquid latex. So applying the top ones as normal and then applying the bottom ones upside down for lower lashes. If you can get your hands on actual lower lashes, that's best, but where I live I could not get any, so I just had to make do with normal standard lashes. Now I've just trimmed away the excess latex, and underneath isn't really looking that great, it's not really looking that safe. So what I'm doing is putting some latex all around the perimeter of the existing latex and then gluing a cotton pad on top, so that way you've got just a nice soft cushion for your eye and it's just going to be a lot safer. Now what I've done is taken some Ben Nye nose and scar wax and just put little kind of sausages all around the perimeter of that. What I'm going to do is start to blend that in using some olive oil into the existing latex and start to kind of stretch the nose and scar wax out. That way it's going to be overlapping, so I'll have a little bit of extra something to play with when I'm trying to blend it into my own skin. So there you have the finished prosthetic. This was my first ever prosthetic I made. I know it's definitely not perfect, but I'm pretty proud of it. If you're wondering about the other eyeball I made, basically I followed the ElliMacs tutorial for the actual eyeball and the kind of thread hanging out, and then I followed the rest of this tutorial to create false eyelids, and also I painted one of the cotton pads black so then it was already dark, and I pretty much did exactly the same with the scar wax around the perimeter of it. So kind of a combination of both tutorials for the other eye. I also punched a hole through the black cotton pad and super glued all of the yarn on the other side of that, and then sandwiched another cotton pad on top. And all the string that was kind of hanging down, I super glued all that so it was nice and strong. So thank you guys for watching. If you want to see the makeup tutorial, definitely watch it. I will link it in the description box below, or you can just click the link at the end of this video and you can watch it there. So yeah, thank you guys again for watching. I hope you liked this video, and if you did, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up and subscribe. Love you guys.